Hi, I'm Jackie,
And I'm Richard.
and we're Early Retirement Wanderlust.
We've just got back from 2 weeks in the Alps skiing and it's been absolutely amazing. On this video, we want to share with you two things. First of all, our great escape from France. We had
Over a foot of snow in the last 2 days just before we left the campsite, so we had to dig ourselves out before we could leave.
and we want to take you through some of our journey home because obviously it's a fair old drive. And during that time,
We had a lot of time to think about the holiday and also reflecting on the costs of it, and we wanted to share with you a bit of a breakdown on how cheaply you could do a ski holiday in a camper van in the French Alps for a week.
so you find us here on Wednesday morning. We're just about packing up and we've got the small matter of at least a foot of snow to clear. Everyone's digging out at the moment. We're not entirely sure whether we're going to need to use snow chains to actually get off, so we're going to try and dig out to here to get to the road. The road on the campsite is pretty well gritted and the main road are okay, but happy days, it's all life's one big adventure.
So one of the big things about this trip is that we've tried to do it as cheap as we could, and one of the biggest things that we needed to make sure is that we travelled in a non-peak week.
We, as teachers, we were stuck with school holidays and we always had to ski at Christmas, New Year or February half term, whereas now we're early retired, we've got the opportunity to travel in January, which are probably some of the cheapest weeks that you can travel.
So the biggest saving we made was on the campsite, because we were travelling in a non-peak week. The campsite was about €27 a night, including the taxes. We only booked for 4 nights because it was a trial to see if we'd liked it or not. So the campsite was €116, which is a bargain. The next thing that we considered was ferries. We looked at all the different ferries rather than the Channel Tunnel. We don't like using the tunnel.
One of the things I actually prefer is to have a bit of a break after a long drive down to Dover, and I think we've done the tunnel a few times and it feels like you're still sat in your car, whereas if you have a proper break at the ferry, you have a leg stretch, you can have a chance to have a meal, and then you're refreshed, ready to go again for driving in France.
So we went with DFDS because it was the cheapest, but also actually on the way back we booked a flexi ticket. The main reason being we didn't know if we would like the skiing. We wanted the flexibility to be able to either stay longer if we thought it was amazing, or to come back earlier if we really struggled with it.
One of the biggest costs of driving across Europe is obviously petrol costs, and the same rules that you would apply in the UK apply in France. So petrol is considerably more expensive on the motorways than it is at supermarkets, but it's a long way across France, and we were on toll roads, and we actually made the decision that rather than going off the toll roads to find a supermarket that would save maybe 10 cents a litre, that we'd actually just pay the petrol costs on the motorways.
We did also notice that pick the petrol station that you choose on the toll roads, because some petrol stations, the petrol is really expensive, but we managed to get it at about €1.80 a litre, which wasn't too bad.
So the fuel bill for us was quite expensive because we were driving down from Yorkshire. So in total, we think that we spent round about £390 on petrol to get from here to France and back, and that was just under 2,000 miles.
The next expense linked with toll roads is, again, as Richard said, we prefer to drive on the tolls because we can get from A to B a lot quicker. It's less stress, definitely less traffic. And the tolls worked out at about £140 altogether, which again, we didn't think was bad value.
Until you've driven in France, you can't actually believe the difference of driving on British motorways to driving on toll auto routes. They're empty, they're deserted. One of the things that I did was just put it in cruise control at 70 miles an hour, because when you're covering that amount of distance, I've just read prior to doing this that the difference between going at 70 and 80, it saves you 20% in fuel. So it was a winner-winner. So obviously we had two parts to the holiday. We had the first week with when the kids joined us and we were in an apartment, and then we had the second part when we were on a campsite and we were just trying to work out whether we could ski out of our camper van. One of the biggest expenses on any ski trip is the lift pass. When we were with the kids, we got a 6-day ski pass. We bought it via our travel operator because they offered a sort of slight discount because we were in a non-peak week as well. The plan were offering a slight discount, so we did make a saving of about €40 a person, but it is still quite a big expense. I can't remember how much it was.
I think the 6-day pass worked out at about €270 per person. It is expensive. When we were on the campsite, we were going to just top up, because once you've got your lift pass, you can just top it up every day. But it was actually cheaper from the campsite to do it through the campsite office. They gave a 10% discount on the actual Paradisky costs. So we initially booked a 2-day pass and it was €103 each. Again, that sounds expensive, and it is, but really worth it.
Yeah, it's not just, you're not covering the costs of the lift, and it's not like a theme park where you are just paying for uplifts up the mountain. The amount of money that goes into these resorts in terms of keeping you safe on the mountainside is unbelievable.
It pays for things like the pisteurs, that as soon as the skiers stop, they are working tirelessly overnight to get the slopes ready for the next day. 6 o'clock in the morning, every morning, particularly because we had so much snow while we were there, you could hear the avalanche blasters, and they were working for a couple of hours again to make the piste safe.
The piste passing goes on all night, so that you've got beautiful slopes and safe slopes in the morning to use. So it is really good value for money, and it does seem a big expense, but you can actually see where the money's being spent. So the next most essential thing, apart from a lift pass, is obviously making sure you've got skis and all the equipment to ski. We hire ours because it's really cost effective to do that. One of the top tips is always book online prior to arriving in resort. The cost difference is incredible. We are talking a 50% saving. We booked our skis for when we were in the camper van while we were on holiday with the kids, and we did that in about 48 hours notice, and we got 3-day ski hire for each of us for around about €33, which was really good value for money. The equipment was really good and well serviced, and it did us fine for equivalent of €11 a day.
A big thing we've noticed since last time we skied is how expensive it is to eat on the mountains. For example, one of the restaurants that we went to when we first got to the Plan area, I think it was something like £16 for a croque monsieur, which is basically a cheese toastie and chips, and another €5 for a coffee. So £20 a head for a toastie, chips and a coffee is pretty expensive.
So one of the things we, much to our kids' disgust, we made sure that we sent them off each day, and we all went off with our little picnics, which were sandwiches that we made up. We took beers, we took our own drinks. We did still go out, and we still did stop for coffees and hot chocolates, but it just meant that we could make a bit of a saving, because that's a considerable expense if you're spending that amount of money every single day on lunches alone.
Yeah, and we picked spots. You know, we picked days where we thought, right, today we're going to go out, we're going to have a really nice lunch with the kids. And then there were other days we had picnics, and it was fun.
And then the other thing that's linked with food is that we obviously self-catered, and we didn't really change things from when we're in the UK. So we had a bit of a meal plan. We then made a shopping list from that. And then we went to one of our two favourite supermarkets. Now, in the UK, we love Aldi, and we do most of our shopping at Aldi. But in France, the Aldis tend to lack a little bit of variety, whereas the Lidls in France are amazing.
Particularly in Albertville, which is one of the big ski towns, there is a huge Lidl. It's over 2 stories, and it's just got the most amazing amount of stock.
And don't be tempted to go to the other supermarkets, because Lidl has just the same ranges, and it is euros cheaper than any of the other big supermarkets in France.
With us retiring, we are wanting to travel in Europe quite a lot. So insurance, when we renewed our insurance this time, we made sure that we had sufficient European cover that's actually within our insurance. I think it was about £480 with Brentaker. A big thing, because we've retired, is travel insurance. When we were working, we used to get the travel insurance through NatWest Bank, but now we're retired, we don't have a wage, so we don't get travel insurance through them anymore. I was really shocked at how expensive that was. That is actually one of our big expenses.
And we had to shop around and find an annual insurance package that covered us for travel in the UK, travel in Europe, and we also had to pay a slight premium to make sure that we got winter sports coverage as well for skiing.
Yeah, and we're also going to America for a month later in the year, so we needed to make sure we had USA cover, which did add a cost to it.
It did. And then one final thing that we've got to think about is the cost of using a mobile phone, and particularly when this time this year we're starting to do YouTube videos, and we have quite a data demand when we're in Europe.
So we've always been with 3 for probably 16 years, mainly because we had free data roaming when we travelled abroad, whether it be America or in Europe. When we went to France earlier in the year, we discovered quite a few big holes in that, really. Obviously, most phone companies now charge £2 a day for your data roaming, and those costs added up when we were there for 3 weeks in the summer for both of us to use our phones. So I made the decision to swap across to EE, because for £10 a month extra, you can have data roaming abroad. And we thought we'd do it on my phone first to see how it worked, and it was fab. I had no extra charges, no hassles at all connecting. I had really good connection speeds, whereas you were 3.
Yeah, it was a compare and contrast, and my experience was this time an absolute nightmare with 3. My phone wouldn't connect to any networks. It then connected and wouldn't download any data. The connection cut off 2, if not 3 times throughout the 10-day holiday. I had to ring the helpline 2 or 3 times and didn't really get any satisfactory answers.
And another significant difference that we found was that with EE, I don't seem to have any data cap. So I've got a 50 gigs contract, and I seemingly could use all 50 gigs across there. I've not been charged any extra. Whereas with 3, even though you're paying you £2 a day, you could still you got to your 12 gig data allowance because we downloaded a YouTube video.
So hopefully that's given you a bit of an insight into how we've tried to keep the skiing experience on budget. We really enjoyed our time over there.
Yes. And would we travel again skiing in our campervan?
Yeah, really excited to do it.
Yeah, it was amazing, and definitely going to book for 3 weeks next year at the campsite and really have a good go at it.